I want to tell you a story that happened to me when I was living in Wisconsin a few years back. One night when I was sleeping, I woke up to the sound of glass shattering. I was half asleep, but also fully aware of the noise that I had just heard. So I grabbed a loaded shotgun I keep under the bed and ran out of the bedroom. I headed towards the front of the house, where I heard the sounds of a burglar trying to break in. I saw that the window in the dining room had been bashed in, and it was obvious that whoever broke the glass was already inside. I tried to stay calm, be as quiet as possible, and get rid of the threat. I'm not going to lie though, I was scared. I took cover underneath the dining room table and aimed towards the living room. After not hearing anything for a while, I made my way towards the living room, being as tactical as possible. My instructor told me to make myself as small of a target as possible, so I was using the angles to my advantage and holding the corners close. I peeked around the living room door and scanned the room. The whole room was a wreck. The couches were ripped up, the tables were overturned, the paintings were knocked down, and there was broken glass all over the place. The person was ransacking the house for valuables. It was obvious. All of a sudden, I heard the perpetrator upstairs, unleashing unholy hell in my man cave. That's where all my good stuff was, and nobody was going to take any of that stuff alive. I ran up the stairs and ran into the man cave, ready to blast the thief full of lead. But the window up there was bashed in, and the criminal had escaped. The man cave is pretty high up, so I expected to see a mangled body on the ground, but there was nothing there. I looked up and saw my barn door was wide open. That's where my chickens are. Nobody messes with my chickens. I was pissed off. I ran down the stairs, out the back door, and towards the barn. As I looked through the door, I saw my chickens were savagely butchered. Blood and feathers were all over the barn floor, and the chicken cages were mangled beyond recognition. This freaked me out, and now I wasn't sure if I was dealing with a person or not. Then I heard my horse squeal. My horse was my life, man. I love that horse more than anything on this earth. I can't describe how I felt when I heard her cry. I sprinted towards the stable as fast as I could. There on the ground, in a pool of blood, was Sugar, my beloved friend. She had bite marks all over her, and she was ripped open. I blacked out. And then the next thing I remember, the police came. The police said it must have been a bear or a wolf, but that's ridiculous. This thing destroyed so much in such a short amount of time. It had to be some sort of freak beast, and it was intelligent too. It knew where all my animals were and murdered them so quickly and efficiently. It had to be supernatural. There was no way any animal I know of could have done this. I hired a paranormal investigator to give me some closure, which turned out to be a complete waste of time. They claimed the demon was punishing me for the way I lived my life. This was no demon. It was clearly some sort of huge creature. And to save everyone some time, Earl's Paranormal Services in Wisconsin is an absolute scam. I've done a lot of research into what the creature could have been. A friend of mine said a Bigfoot could have done it, but from what I've researched, a Bigfoot doesn't seem agile and intelligent enough. I'm convinced it was a werewolf. Werewolves are human, so when they turn into a werewolf, the human mind is still somewhere in their subconscious. I'm thinking this was a rival egg merchant. My chickens produce the best damn eggs in Wisconsin, and I gave them away for a bargain. I'm thinking someone wanted a cut of that egg action, and when they turned into a werewolf, their desire became reality. I don't know why he had to hurt Sugar though. Sugar never did anything wrong to anybody. I really miss that horse. I can't bring myself to get another one. A werewolf would have the strength required to bash the window in and kill my animals in one swoop, while also having the agility to run down the halls and jump out of the window unharmed. The chicken cages were bent by bite marks, and the beast devoured 30 freaking chickens in the minute it took me to sprint over to the barn. Please share some wisdom with me and help me figure this thing out. Should a beast like this come to my new house, I'm definitely prepared. But it's not knowing that is the worst. It had to be heartless and evil to kill Sugar like that. Almost like it knew how much I loved that horse. If you have any idea what this could be, please give me a call. I'm desperate for answers. Just don't tell me it's Bigfoot though. That's a bunch of malarkey, and I won't entertain it. When I was a kid, my dad built me this wonderful tree house. I'd seen them in the movies and TV shows, and I wanted one more than anything in the world. I never wanted to leave it. I'd spent many nights in the treehouse before, without any issue. I'd even have sleepovers with school friends there. My mom never liked me sleeping in there, but as long as it wasn't a school night, and it was warm enough, my dad would step in and say, "It's fine." One summer, I remember spending every night for a week out there, until my mom told me I needed to come inside. I was a bit of a wild child, so I'd sneak out to be out there after she fell asleep. I just enjoyed the peace of nature. I loved hearing the crickets chirp and seeing the lightning bugs. I always thought that nature was kind of magical. One of those nights during the summer, I was up in the treehouse reading with my flashlight. I'd snuck out through my bedroom window around 11 p.m. to go up there, and my parents were both asleep in bed. I heard a quiet rustling in the woods. I didn't think much of it. There were tons of deer and other wildlife around us, so I assumed it must have been something like that. I peeked through the window in my treehouse to take a quick look. I didn't see anything when I looked, and I chalked it up to a deer running away. I kept reading my book. I didn't hear anything else for a while. About an hour passed, and I was really getting to a good spot in the book. I started to smell something weird. It was rotten and smelled really coppery, like old hamburger meat. I pinched my nose, thinking it would go away soon, but it only got stronger. I felt nauseous smelling it. The thing about sneaking out of my bedroom window was that I couldn't sneak back through it. As much as I wanted to go inside to avoid it, I couldn't. I'd have to wait for my parents to wake up so I could go in the front door. I covered my head with my blanket and hoped it would go away soon, because I definitely wouldn't be able to sleep with the stench. The woods were quiet, and out of nowhere, I heard a shrill scream. I sat up quickly, and I looked out the window. It was steady and loud. It sounded mechanical almost, kind of like how people sound in demon movies, when there are two voices talking. It died down after a minute, and I kept my eyes on the woods where it came from. It couldn't have been a deer, and I've never heard of any other animal make that noise. I saw in the tree line something very tall moving. I hadn't noticed it at all until it moved, but I'd been staring right at it. I jumped back and turned off my lantern so it wouldn't see me. I hid under the blankets again, and I hoped I could wait it out until the morning without whatever that was seeing me. But I heard quiet footsteps approach the treehouse. The screaming noise sounded again, but this time it was much closer. I needed to get inside desperately. I peeked through the blanket, hoping my dad heard the noise and was investigating it. Thankfully, I saw my parents' bedroom light come on, and a wave of relief filled me. I thought I'd run down and knock on the front door, let them know I was outside. I started making my way down the ladder, and I saw a tall creature with completely hollow eyes start moving toward me. It was terrifying to look at. I climbed back up the ladder as quickly as I could and started screaming at the top of my lungs. I was yelling for my mom and dad, hoping they would run outside and be able to bring me in. After a minute, The porch light came on, and my dad ran out in his boxers, carrying a baseball bat. I screamed for him and jumped out of my treehouse. He met me halfway and carried me back to the porch. I told him what I'd seen, and he looked around quickly, not able to see anything, though he complained it smelled like rotten eggs around the treehouse. I explained it over and over to them, but they just thought it was a dream of mine. What I never understood about that was, they heard the scream too. That's why they got up to begin with. I was banned from ever sleeping in my treehouse again, which wasn't an issue with me at all. I never wanted to see it again. My parents thought I was hallucinating or hearing things every time I told them. I started to believe it too. I heard the screaming a few more times. It was further into the woods, and I'd never seen the creature again. But I knew it was still lurking in the woods. I didn't like going outside at night after that. I loved it so much before, but after, I'd only go out during the day. I tried to talk to some school friends about it, but they didn't believe me either. I almost wish I could get a better glimpse of it, to be able to describe it better, or show someone else, to prove I'm not insane. So, my spouse surprised me with a trip to France, and I was like, sweet. Ever since we first started dating, we talked about going to France. We just never got around to it because my spouse's mom got sick, and she lived with us until she died. And then my spouse got sick. It's a whole long, sad story that I'm not going to go into. But my spouse said that before she kicked the bucket, she wanted to go to France with me, which I thought was freaking awesome. Something we'd always dreamed of doing, and to be honest, I never thought it was going to happen. I'll never forget that trip for a lot of different reasons, but something happened to me down there that changed me forever. We were having a great time exploring the countryside and stuff, but one day, things took a weird turn. My spouse wasn't feeling so hot, and she just wanted to stay in bed. So, instead of doing all the things we planned to do together, I decided to go on a boat ride in the countryside by myself to take in the sights. Now, I'm not usually one to believe in crazy stuff, but what happened that day was like something out of a movie. I saw these massive sea serpent-looking things swimming alongside me. I was like, what the hell is that? I tried to stay as still and quiet as I possibly could as these things glided by me in the water. They were like nothing I had seen before. I'm telling you, they were massive, with these long, scaly bodies that looked like they went down deep below the surface of the water. They each had these long teeth, so sharp they could probably slice through steel. They all made this hissing sound that together was the scariest thing I've ever heard. I've been bitten a lot by snakes as a kid, but these things could have eaten me alive. Their skin was this deep shade of green, almost like the color of algae, but with hints of blue and gray mixed in. And the scales, oh man, the scales looked rough and jagged, like these things had been in some gnarly fights. Every time they moved, it was like they were creating some kind of whirlpool, sucking everything around them into their path. The craziest and creepiest thing about these guys is they all moved in unison. It was like they were all part of the same creature, even though there were multiple heads and bodies, and every time they moved, it was like the water around them churned and frothed. It was freaking bizarre. It was like a train wreck. I wanted to cower in my boat, but I couldn't look away. These sea serpent creatures were like something out of a freaking nightmare. One thing's for sure, I'm never going on a boat ride again. That's for damn sure. I tried to tell my spouse about it later, but they were just sick, like, sure, honey, and went back to sleep. I didn't see those things again after that, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like, what the hell was that? I needed to know more. So I started talking to some of the locals, and they had all of these stories about river monsters and stuff. And some of them were like, nah, that's just a myth. But others were like, oh yeah, I've seen them too. After the initial shock wore off, I did what any normal person would do and hopped on my laptop to figure out what the hell I saw. That's what I learned about sea serpents, the Greek hydra, and this thing called the Allier River monster, which was relatively close to where I took the boat. So get this, everyone's heard of sea serpents before. I had never heard of the hydra, or the Allier River monster, or this Japanese creature called Orochi. The freaky thing about these guys is that they are all one creature with multiple heads. From the second I saw the picture of the Allier River monster, my heart freaking sank. It was so hard to believe that something like this existed, but I saw it with my own two eyes. The weirdest thing about these serpent things was how they all moved together, and after reading all about these guys, it made a lot of sense. They weren't moving together. They were all one giant, terrifying creature. I gotta tell ya, I'm so freaking grateful that those sea serpent creatures didn't kill me right then and there. I mean, I was scared out of my freaking mind when I saw them, but looking back on it now, it's like, holy crap, I could have died. I guess I should count myself lucky that I made it out alive. It's funny. It used to drive my spouse absolutely nuts when I talked about seeing the creature. She always said it was probably just a bunch of snakes or something, but deep down, I think she was jealous that she didn't see it for herself. God rest her soul. She was a good woman. I miss her every day, you know. But I tell you what, I'm so glad we got to France before it was all over. That trip was one of the best things that ever happened to me, and besides seeing the snake thing, it was a beautiful experience. And seeing the beast was scary as hell, but it was also like this big adventure, you know? Like who knows what else is out there in the world that we don't know about. It's really exciting when you think about it. Seeing something like that will make you feel so small and insignificant in the grand scheme of things. It's so arrogant to assume that we know everything about the universe. We definitely don't. And that experience solidified that thought in my mind forever.